Hey, I'm Nate G219, and this is the Help It Back and Better. Y'all know what it is, another one coming at ya. First, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that channel if you want to help out. Today is January 4th, about 8:30 in the morning. You know that's the irrelevance for today. But I'm doing a reaction on the Alaskan Avenger, a man that is a hero amongst many people's eyes, including mine. He is a damn hero. He took justice into his own hands. He's going to get into it, but there's a reason why I'm bringing this video to you guys. And because Indiana, we have our own Avenger. And let's get into the video, and we'll talk more about Indiana's Avenger.
You know me, my name is Jason Vukovic. They also called me the Alaskan Avenger in the press a long time ago, and I figured I would take some time today and maybe tell you guys a little bit about my life and my story. So if you see me on here and you see my channel, you get a chance to get to know me, you know what this stuff is all about. I live up here in Anchorage, Alaska. I was born up here in Anchorage, Alaska, and I had an interesting life as a child. I was adopted by a guy that was convicted later of child molestation and abuse and things like that. And I suffered a lot of abuse and childhood trauma at the hands of this guy. And eventually I ended up running away from home when I was 15 years old. Went out and started my life, started doing my thing. Turned into a thief and a liar pretty quick. I think that's some of the results of childhood trauma, you know. It really puts this thing in your mindset when they beat you like an animal. It drives into you that you don't have any value, that you're not worth anything. And so you really do adopt that mind.
Now, I can't relate to being physically abused or mentally abused or any abuse from my own parents. But I unfortunately was sexually abused by a doctor, Dr. Black, in Portage, Indiana. But this is back in the 80s. And, you know, I never went to lengths to go punish people. But I punished myself. Not coming out about it, not talking about it. Self-medicating, and no matter what, always trying to forget it. It's not something I'll ever forget. It's something that's been in my memory like it happened yesterday my entire life. No matter what kind of drugs I did, no matter what I smoked, no matter what I shoved in my arm, it didn't matter.
Mindset, and you start to believe it, and so you behave that way, and that's certainly what I did. So anyway, I started traveling all over the United States. I ran away when I was 15 years old, climbed out the window, never went back. And traveled all over the country, worked blue-collar jobs. I was also doing credit card fraud during that time. Of course, I started getting high when I was young. That's one of the things we do to mask pain and mask trauma. I started out with weed. I lived in a very weed-centered environment up here in the valley. And this is a part of Alaska that's super known for really great weed for the longest. The Matanuska Thunderfuck, everybody knows about that. And it worked really good for me.
Sorry, I don't know exactly what kind that is. Bet you it's phenomenal. We live down in Indiana where weed is rather frowned upon. I mean, still to this day, you get caught with a joint, you're likely to go to jail. Especially in the county that I live in. We call it the country of Porter County. They're kind of strict on everything. Like, 10 years for middlemaning a $20 bag of dope. No, I'm not minimizing what I did, but had I been 2 miles west of here, I guarantee it would have been low-grade felony, 1.5 to 3 years at most. But it is what it is. Like I said in yesterday's reaction, that was God giving me a timeout.
Mask my trauma and mask my pain, so I started there. And eventually I progressed on and started using small amounts of methamphetamine. I would snort lines. It was like a working man's enhancement to begin with. And these are just things that damaged my life greatly. And so,
Fortunately, I never got involved with the methamphetamines. They, until recently, never made it up to my town. Now you could get cocaine, you could get crack cocaine, you could get heroin. It was just meth. Hadn't made it north of Route 30 up until the last few years. Now, from what I understand, you can get it right around the corner. It's damning. It's everywhere. It's ruining people's lives. I go through the police blotter. Possession of methamphetamine. Possession of methamphetamine. It's just, it's sad. I've got old friends that are deeply involved, and the only place that they're going to end up is prison. Excuse me. I mean, that's that. Prison or dead. Because the life it leads into makes you do some crazy things. I know I've been incarcerated with a lot of people that have been up for 5-6 days and unalive somebody because they thought something else was going on. Just, you never know what the hell is going to happen when you start messing with crap like that. Just something I'm very grateful I never got to experiment with.
I sort of took it upon myself. I had this internal calling or this internal drive to do things as I could, where I could, to help out other people that were victims of this sort of abuse. And so what that led me to do was to put my hands on people and start tracking them down when I heard about them, and I would take care of the business. And this is not something that I just did in Alaska. It's something that I did in a number of states, a number of times. And I'm not going to get into any of the specifics of that, and I'm not trying to glorify all that type of stuff, but that's really what it was. And, you know, most states, most places, I would end up moving or leaving, and I would be in a particular state or a particular town, usually not longer than 6 months or maybe a year at a time. And then I would pack up and travel and move on to the next town. So I lived in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, California, pretty much everywhere on the West Coast, Salt Lake City, Utah. And every state that I went to, it wouldn't take long for people that had this sort of abuse in their life to gravitate towards me. And then I would get involved in their storyline, or I would get involved in whatever they had going on. And I would.
Unfortunately, Jason, you never made it to Indiana. But fortunately, you are a free man. And I'm glad you're able to tell this story, because there's a lot of young men that have this pure hate in their heart and this pure anger and things that they've never emotionally dealt with. And things like this, although I think are righteous as all hell, they're illegal, and they're going to get you a prison sentence. And I'm glad to see you're out, Jason. I'm definitely glad to see you're out.
Do what I do. So after many years of that, I ended up in Bend, Oregon, and it was a real similar situation. And as a result of some of my efforts, I had to sell my home. I had a great business there. I had to sell my home and pack it up, and by then I was an adult. I had 2 children that were 10 and 13 years old, respectively. And I moved back up here to the state of Alaska. And I thought to myself, if there's any state, anywhere I could go, I could probably come back to my hometown, my home state. Everything's going to be all right. And I came back to Alaska, and I started doing some blue-collar work. I did industrial painting and things like that. And wouldn't you know, before long, here it came again, that old calling. And the thing is, when you're a survivor of childhood abuse, it does not take much. It does not take too much of a push to shove you in that direction to go start handling things in a certain type of manner, putting your hands on people and stuff like that. And certainly that was the case for me.
I can wholeheartedly agree with that, because when I see or hear of one, I instant rage. It's a problem. I try not to. But there's no place on earth. I feel that there's no place on earth for scum like that. I agree 100%. It just something that will set you off internally and may put you on a path that you don't want to be on.
So eventually, I was arrested for assaulting 3 pedophiles up here in the state of Alaska. One of them with a hammer, and I was given a 23-year prison sentence for doing so. I took a deal. I was initially indicted on 27 felony counts, 9 felonies for each one. Robbery, burglary, first-degree assault, second-degree assault, etc. Because a lot of the times I would go into their house and I would smash them out and I would take their stuff. And so I pled out in the...
Stuff they didn't deserve anyways. Houses they didn't deserve. But an ass whooping they surely did deserve.
And because obviously I was guilty, everybody knew I was guilty, and I didn't want to walk into a trial and end up with 200 years. And so, kind of the sad part of all of that is, again, if you're a little kid and you've been severely traumatized in that manner, and then you grow up to be an adult, as cool as everybody wants to make it sound, and as necessary as it is for there to be deterrence against this sort of abuse in our communities, etc., what happens to the kid that's involved in all of that is you grow up to be an adult and you have a really messed up life and you make a lot of poor choices and you do a lot of things that you regret and stuff like that. And then you end up in a penitentiary, and then you basically get placed in solitary confinement mentally, spiritually as a child and throughout the whole course of your life. And then you grow up and be an adult, and then you end up living in a prison and you're still in confinement, only now it's physical confinement. And that's exactly what happened to me. And so you can see by my body, I'm completely covered with prison tattoos from top to bottom. A lot of people ask me about my tattoos. Is it gang stuff? Is it Masonic stuff? Is it religious stuff? The fact of the matter is, when you are sitting there with a single needle gun drilling on your skin wherever it's at, the physical pain is so intense and it's so immediate that you don't feel any emotional pain whatsoever. I didn't miss anybody. My heart didn't hurt.
That I can relate to. And although I'm not covered from top to bottom, I do have quite a few. I've been under that single needle more times than most. I've sat there and endured that. And it is a release for a lot of us. When I feel that needle putting that ink on, I've gone to sleep on a few different artists. And I'll tell you one thing, it's not like going to a shop where they got them 10 needle shaders and stuff like that. Single needle tattooing, you got to get one needle to color everything in. It can be a very painful experience. But for some of us, it's very therapeutic.
And I just felt the physical pain in the moment. So for those 400 or 500 hours of that single needle work, my heart didn't hurt at all. So that's some of the answer to the extensive amount of tattoos. And I don't know if everybody out there sees it that way, but that's what it was for me. So, and yeah, there definitely is a whole bunch of significance to my work. Like, I don't have anything on my body that doesn't have some sort of particular meaning to me. So anyway, so I went to Spring Creek Correctional Center first. I did about 6 or 7 years out there, which is a maximum security joint. It's kind of an interesting part of the storyline because I was never maximum security, even with my convictions. And mind you, this is now my 10th, 11th, 13th, 14th felony convictions in my life. So I had a lot of convictions, but I was still medium custody just because of the points and my age and everything else. Institutional conduct, by the time I was sentenced, it took, like 2 years I sat in pretrial waiting. And so, but they sent me to the max joint anyway. They probably figured like, oh no, this dude, he needs to go to the max joint. So I went out there. And surprisingly, I met a lot of good people while I was out there. I hung out with the old heads, guys doing life sentences. I continued down my path because kind of coinciding with all of my criminal and ruffian behavior, surprisingly, I also am something of a spiritualist, and it's something that I hold really dear to my heart, and it's really important to me. So I got to study with Sufi masters, a Satru.
So when you do go to prison, if you do go to prison, you are going to meet some of the smartest, kindest people you'll ever meet in your entire life. Some people with wisdom beyond belief. Wisdom of a man that's been there for 500 years. You are going to be in your head a lot. You're going to be thinking about what you did, and that's what prison's designed for. Sit you down, make you think about what you did. Maybe guide you into a better path in life. But remember, rehabilitation is within. So the prison didn't rehabilitate this man. He rehabilitated himself. He made better choices when he got there. A path, he chose to go down a different path in life. You know, just because you take a wrong turn doesn't mean you can't turn around and correct your path. It doesn't mean that. Because many do. So,
Masters, Hermetic Science, Masonry. We started a clandestine lodge and studied the old traditions for a number of years. And I really advanced myself spiritually during those years, so it was a good time. I also did a ton of sweats with the native elders out there, warrior sweats. Over 100 of them, got my pipe from those guys. And it was a really cool thing, and it's really blessed my life going forward. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about other spiritual traditions and things like that, and it's been a real benefit to me. So, during those years, too, we had a really cool, really progressive warden. Shout out to Bill Lipinskis. He was a great guy. He let us do a lot of things. I was on the Restorative Justice Committee, editor of a newsletter. I was a re-entry mentor and a mod that we started.
So as you hear, he didn't just sit there and go idle in his time. He wasn't sitting there gangbanging while he was in prison. He was becoming productive. He was teaching himself how to become a productive member of society, blah, blah, blah. A good citizen. He doesn't want to be a convict. He didn't want to go to prison. He didn't want a 23-year sentence ever in his life. Nobody ever wants to go to prison. But sometimes those who do go to prison, they learn. And it sounds like Jason's learned a whole lot while he spent his time in prison.
I became a level 1, level 2 educated substance abuse counselor. I just used the time to complete as many classes and do as much stuff as I possibly could. Also made some bad choices during that time. Also got blamed a few times and thrown in the hole, but I really think that's part of this long learning curve that we go through when we're addicts and we're covering up trauma and stuff like that. Certainly, that was the case for me. It took me a long time to learn that lesson. I've been sober for 3 years now, and I really hold on to that tightly. And recently, too, they sent me back to jail for 30 days. And while I was in there, man, just the intensity of the drug use and what these guys are going through, I cannot tell you how important my sobriety is to me. It's a big deal. So, anyway, after Seward, they transferred me finally to a minimum security prison. And surprisingly, I had gotten along so well on the max joint. The guys there know how to conduct themselves. If you got respect, you get respect. There's a code of conduct. Everybody abides by it. It's really official. And it wasn't until I went to the medium yard, and in Alaska, it's crazy. They sent me to Goose Creek Correctional Center. And you know how they do it there? They mix guys that haven't been sentenced yet with guys that are serving prison sentences. And honestly, I don't even know if that's legal. I think...
Now, that's unheard of. Almost unheard of. I only know of a couple cases of guys that are in prison that aren't sentenced to prison that are fighting their cases or were fighting their cases. And, you know, if they get hurt in prison and they get found not guilty, that means that they were in prison for no reason whatsoever. Never heard of that before. I think that could be become a legal situation. But, you know, every state has their own laws, so I'm not going to touch on the legal aspect of that. But I'm going to touch on going from a max joint to a level 2, or vice versa, because I started at a level 1/2, with roughly 350 people there. And it didn't take me long to end up in a maximum security prison. And the respect level in a maximum security prison is so much higher than it is in a level 1 or 2 that it's almost safer in a sense. Now, you are definitely much more subject to being unalived than you are getting beat up and robbed. Getting beat up and robbed is a level 1, level 2 facility situation. I mean, you go to Westville, which is a level 2, that's about 30 minutes away from my house. It's a level 2 joint, but it's one of the roughest joints in Indiana, and it's the largest. But, I mean, you go in there, and you're likely to be robbed of everything that the state has given you. Your state t-shirts, state socks, all that. Gone with a quickness.
There's something to that, who knows? But to go 7 years into your bid and get transferred to a yard and have to sell up and live around guys that just got arrested or are just coming through, they're coming down off of their dope and doing what they're doing, man, that was a really rough transition. I didn't really like that time there at all. But I made it. I survived. Eventually, I made it to minimum custody, and they sent me out to Point Mac, which is a work farm. And I worked on the livestock crew, and that was a really good time. Shout out to the guys out there, man. That's good staff, good people out of Point Mac. And then I was fortunate enough to be approved to do the last 3 years of my prison sentence, which I'm doing now, on ankle monitors, sentenced in the community. The state of Alaska has that program, so you can finish out the last portion of your sentence out in the community, and that's what I'm doing now. So here I sit. And I've been able, JD Delay, love you, bro. Pretty big YouTuber, came up here, put me on the creator game, taught me how to do it, showed me some little tips and tricks and things like that. And I've had a big community of people come around to support me in this process. And it's just important for me to communicate to you guys. Like, people see little short hits online and they don't have any idea where you come from or what you've been through. And I'm telling you right now, it's the same way when I interact with state employees or DOC staff or whatever. I don't really think they conceive of what you've been through or where you came from. They just see you in the moment. And so, you know, being harshly judged for some of my choices and things like that, I understand it, but you got to understand the effects of a human being when you were raised the way I was raised. That stuff lasts with you your whole life. And there are things that you have to actively work on the daily, and I do. I work on those things on the daily. There was a whole lot of stuff in the press. A lot of people called me a hero, and they had all kind of names and stuff for me. And I'm here to tell you unequivocally, I'm absolutely no hero. Never thought of myself as a hero. The things that I went and did, I did for really personal reasons that were dear to my heart. And for better or for worse, that's why I did it. And so I want to make that clear, too, while I'm talking to you guys and giving you a little bit of insight. I'm definitely not a hero. Not at all. I pretty much was able to do something. When I was a little kid, I wish some tattooed up badass would have kicked the door in and beat the brakes off the guy that was molesting me. And that's really how I thought of it when I was out there in action. That's genuinely what I thought of. I thought when I was a little kid, man, I would have loved this. I would have given a cheer. And so I really took it to be a privilege to be able to do that for some other little kids. And that's what was in my mind, and that was literally what was in my heart while I was doing that stuff. So, again, unequivocally, it's not behavior that I'll ever do again. I can assure you of that. That's never going to happen again. So, but now it's time to move forward, and I want to help out other people that are in this situation. If you're a survivor of child abuse, I've started a business, Alaska Hardcore Recovery. I'm doing recovery services, recovery coaching for people. If you need help out of addiction, or if you need help with your trauma or things like that, just hit me up. You guys know how to hit me on the socials. Do that. It's really a cool thing that we can do for each other. So, and I'm happy to share wisdom and insight and things that I've learned. I'm definitely something of a ruffian, and I'm rough around the edges, but I'm going to tell you right now, if it's out there, I've been through it. If you're trying to do it or you're thinking about doing it, I've probably already done it at least 2 times, and I'll be happy to help you out and give you some advice or insight on how to avoid the pitfalls and things that I've stepped into. So I hope this little chat has given you guys a second to kind of get to know me and know my heart. You can always shoot questions in the comments. I'm happy to answer those at all times. Obviously, you guys can subscribe to the channel. We need this. If we want this to continue and we want this family to get bigger and this community to grow, that's how it works. Again, I've been out of the penitentiary for a sum total of like 5 weeks. So I'm learning the stuff. I'm learning how to do it. Granted, everything's hella rough right now, and a lot of my stuff just looks rough, but you got to just bear with me. I'm going to do my best.
All right, so that's the end of the video, pretty much. There was another 10 seconds on it, but I need a new screen protector. I couldn't get it perfectly. But that is the end of the video. Go check out the Alaskan Avenger show, Jason Vukovic. He's got a great message, and he's a great guy. And the reason why I wanted to react to his video, because Indiana, we had a gentleman back in 2001 unalive one of those monsters. The monster had recently been charged with kitty diddling, and my buddy unalived him. And there is a lot more to the story, but my buddy's been in since 2001. He was given a sentence of 68 years. Actually, he was given a 118 and a half, but because of certain laws, Indiana, he gave back Indiana half his time. They had to cut his sentence in half. So he's left with a 68-year sentence. And because of the laws at the time, he has to serve 50% of that. It's 34 years. 65 years for unaliving somebody, and 3 years for theft. Now, I'm talking about my buddy Cleatus Furlong. And I'm going to attach the petition for the governor down at the bottom in the description of the video again. So please definitely hit that petition and check out any videos I've done on Cleatus Furlong. He was a child that had been abused, not sexually, but he had been physically abused when he was young. Had a lot of hatred, but always was willing to help the kid being bullied. He hated seeing kids get bullied. He was being bullied by somebody, ended up getting kicked out of his house. He had just turned 18 a few months before that, and he was running with the wrong guy. The wrong guy, TJ Forbes, manipulated Cleatus, and together they had unalived a man. Now, the man, Robert Nolan, good riddance. And I did do an interview with one of his victims that said he is a hero. Cleatus is his hero. And he told me Cleatus is his hero. He said it in the interview. So go back to some of my videos and check that out, guys. But never forget life's choices. You never know what road you're going to turn down and where it's going to end up. Look what happened to Jason. He did make some bad choices that were some heroic bad choices, but bad choices to say the least. But Jason is home now. And Jason's out here spreading a positive message, and I would expect nothing less of my buddy Cleatus if he were to be given a second chance. As of right now, the prosecutor is getting a bunch of bull crap and fighting it with every bit of being. But Cleatus is a hero in my eyes and many others' eyes. So that was my main reason on doing the reaction on Mr. Vukovic's video. And Jason, I've been following him for a while now, and JD Delay, of course, I follow him, and he's talked a lot about Jason. But hey, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that channel if you want to help out, guys. And always remember, if they ain't hating it, you ain't making it. Peace.